Hello there. Today we are going to start our first episode of C++ course in Unreal Engine. In this episode, we are taking a look at actors and C++ classes and their relation, and also what will happen to the blueprint according to this relation. Then let's dig into it. See you there. Before starting development in Unreal Engine, you need to prepare the tools that you need there. These tools can be either related to the asset creation or modeling or other stuff, or when you're thinking about scripting and writing a code, you should think about the environment that you want to do that. This environment can be either a code editor or integrated development environment or IDEs. The code editor is a smart notepad. It's lightweight and designed primarily for editing text. It features syntax highlighting in simpler way, coloring the text in proper way that you can distinguish between different parts of the code. It also shows line numbers and provides you with some simple code compilation. And recently, lots of AI features are available there. It has some limitation because it's by default or out of the box, it cannot debug and compile lots of C++ codes that you need, or it cannot go deeply into the debugging. But they are very fast to open and edit the code, and it's a very good benefit in there. On the other hand, the integrated development environment features compiler, debugger, and deep analysis tool into a one package. It means an IDE is a full workshop. It does not just let you write the code, it provides every tool you need to turn that code into the working programs. The different examples exist for both of these tools. For example, for the IDEs, you can use Visual Studio or JetBrains Riders. But even if you want to use the JetBrains Riders, you need to install the C++ compiler from the Visual Studio. The reason for that is Unreal needs MSVC compiler to build your game on Windows. Also, Visual Studio will provide you with the IntelliSense as well as Rider that gives you these benefits. And it has a very powerful debugger in there that you will need when you are modifying your code and going deep into the analysis of it. In this way, we need one of these tools, but in this course, we will focus on the Rider specifically because it provides us with some additional tools for Unreal Engine development and make our life easier. Okay, in this chapter, we are going to use a stack of projects to create our own classes and using them and see how this integrated development environment will be useful in Unreal Engine. In order to do that, just open the Epic Games Store and go to the Fab, search for Stackabout, and create a project out of that one. When you want to create the project, it will ask you for the location. You can give it also a name which is distinguishable, and we will create it. When the project is downloaded, you can find it inside the Unreal Engine part in the list of projects for yourself, and you can find it here. Perfect. Now the project is opened. And if we want to start the game, it says, okay, just go to the level of Stackabout to see how does it work. In order to do that, we can open the content browser. We can go also over the environment of Unreal Engine, but maybe a little bit later that we need it actually, because for now it's fine for us to still using this one. When you open the content browser, you can search for this level, or if you go to the contents level, you can enable different filters here, and you can select, for example, the levels. Then when you select the levels, it will show you all the available levels in the project. For example, this level is LVL main menu, not LVL Stackabout. When you click on it, the level will be opened, and you see it's very interesting level with lots of objects in there. And we are actually going to use some of these objects and elements in the level. In general, as a fun shortcut that can be very handy in Unreal Engine, by pressing G, you can enable and disable the gizmos on the objects. That can be very handy. It means it's actually switching between the game visualization and non-game or editor visualization. You can also define some object to be hidden when it's in the game visualization, and they will be hidden when you press G as well. Let's a little bit go in there and see what do we have here. As you can see, it says no region is loaded. You can select the certain region that you want to have, right click and load region from selection. It will probably take a couple of seconds to be loaded, but after that, you will see that the elements in there are loaded. But we are not going to talk about this project specifically yet. We want to see what we can use in here in our development process. In order to do that, first let's take a look at what we have here as object generation. For example, in the menu, you can create a new object by adding an object into the project, selecting a shape, for example, and adding this shape into the level. This shape is a static mesh that you can see the detail of that one here, and it has a static mesh material and other stuff. But actually, what is behind this? What is making this object visible in the environment and interactable? And it's the parts that we want to talk about it. The fact is, this object is an actor. The actor is an object that you can place in the level. If you can see it, move it, or select it in the viewports, it's likely an actor. Any object that you can do this stuff with that. For example, cameras, lights, player characters, weapons, vehicle, and static meshes, as you can see here. What makes an actor special is a container that holds the components. It has transforms like a location, rotation, and scale. It supports replication for multiplayering, and also you can spawn and destroy these actors. But the important point is the code behind these actors is actually the classes that defines this actor behavior. And we want to see what is there. We can say an actor is simply a class that inherits from Unreal Engine base code. But what is the class actually? A class is a user defined receipt for creating an instruction how to build an object. But what does it mean? It means we have a recipe that we can make lots of objects out of that. It is one of the basic features of object oriented language. It's a core concept in there. And it has two main things that it's important for us as a developer to know. The first one is attributes or variable that makes what the object is or has, like health, speed, name, or anything else. On the other hand, it has behaviors or functions, and it defines what object can do, like attacking, jumping, or even dying in there. The class is a cutter. It isn't a cookie, but it defines the shape and size of that cookie. The objects that will be made out of that class is a cookie itself. You can use one class to make 100 objects. If you modify your class, the behavior of that object will be changed. And now we are going to make our own first class here in Unreal Engine. Then let's see how we can do that. Actually, we have a couple of ways to do that one. First, I will start with the way that Unreal Engine is recommended, or at least it's implemented by default, and then we will see another way to create that. In order to create the class in our project, as this project specifically is a blueprint based, we need to go to the tools and create a new class here. Our class can be based on different type of base classes that we will discuss about inheritance relation of them, but we would like to create an actor as we discuss something similar to this box. By selecting that and pressing next, we can define how we want to create our class. The first, we will give it a name. We will call it sample actor for now, but later we will change it. And also we should define whether we want to put the header and C++ in somewhere in there. Actually, it's important to understand what this header file is and this CPP file. The header file is a declaration. It tells the computer what exists, but now how it works. It lists the variables, for example, health, ammo. It lists also the functionality names, like the name of the function, like firing weapon, reloading it. It's like a restaurant menu. It lists a cheeseburger that you know it will be served, but it will not provide you with the recipe. How does it make? On the other hand, the source file is like a kitchen. Its definition and implementation of all the things that we define in the header file exist in there. There is where we define and write the statements. For example, we say if the health is lower than 0, then the character should die. It's like a receipt card inside the kitchen. It explains exactly how to cook the cheeseburger step by step. Why we are separating them then? For example, if you are working with C sharp, we are not separating them in the C sharp. We have one class file that includes the definition of the variables and also implementation of the functionality there. But here in C++, it gives us additional efficiency when we are doing that. It means we define just the definitions inside our header file usually. You can also define some functionality there, but it's another story that we can think about it. But in another part of the code, you will define the functionality. If another part of your code wants to talk to your player, it doesn't need to see how does the functionality implemented. It just talk with the header file. And for that reason, header file is usually public for us, but C++ file is private. We will also talk more about this public and private later. But for now, we can choose public, and it puts the header file into the public folder and C++ file into the private folder. Then let's create it. Now that you created your class, you need to also define for Unreal Engine what tools to be used for modifying that class. You can go to the editor preferences, and in the source code, you can define what code editor or IDE you want to use. Here I have Visual Studio and also Rider, but I chose Rider that is more convenient for me. You can afterward go to the tools, refreshing Rider project and opening that Rider project to see the code that you have. Also, you will see the class that you created in the content browser in the C++ folder, and if you go to the public, you can find the header file for that class. If you do not see this file here, actually you need to restart your editor. It means just close and open, and it will work out of the box. And when you go to the writer, you will see actually in the hierarchy of your projects, in the games, name of your project, into the source with the name of your project again, because here you might have different plugins and other stuff or other modules. But here, as we are working in the source folder of our projects, with the name of the projects, two folders, private and public, that we discussed before. In the public one, you can find the header file, and in the private one, you can find the C++ file. I usually open them side by side. On the left-hand side, the header file, and on the right-hand side, the C++ file, that I can easily see them. If you see that your writer takes time, feel free to give it a little bit more time because it needs to prepare and also indexing all the files. It might take some minutes, but after that, it will be very handy to use it. In the header file, we have some predefined methods like instruct constructor for our class, as well as the begin play methods, and also the ticks and the implementation of them, which are not doing that much of things yet, but we will implement some interesting features in them in the next episode. But let's see how we can use this class that we already created. As we mentioned, it's somehow a receipt that we can use to create a blueprint or objects out of that one. If you go in your project in the public folder, if you right click on the class, you can create a blueprint class based on that class that you already created. You can click on it. It will define where do you want to create it. For now, I will select the content and give it a name. Usually also follow a certain naming convention, whatever you prefer, but always try to stick to it. For example, I use BP for blueprint and I call it sample actor. Now that I have this one, I can create that blueprint and I see this blueprint created for me. I will attach it here and I have a blueprint that made out of that class. And here the question is, what is Blueprint actually? The Blueprint is a visual scripting language in Unreal Engine, which runs in a virtual machine inside the Unreal Engine. It gives us lots of freedom and also fast to iterate implementation environments. And it's very handy to modify or attach different passes for the objects or other effects or adding additional components into the class that we are working with it. And it makes the life much easier if you learn how to use it and what's the relation between C++ classes and blueprints and where do you need to use each one of them. But just to know, as you can see, we created the blueprint. On the top right corner, you see the parent class is a sample actor. If you click on it, it will open in Rider the class that you already created for it. And also, you can add some additional object into it. For example, I will add a sphere into my class or blueprint that I made out of that one. And then here I can see if I add it into the level, the sphere is added. In the next episodes, we will see also how that we create a static mesh placeholder inside the class itself, not by adding into the blueprint, because it's also more convenient to do some of the steps there. The other way that you can create a blueprint out of your class is by right-clicking in the content browser and creating a new blueprint class. And here from the classes that you have, searching for the name of the class that you already created. As you can see, here is the sample class or sample actor that we have. Selecting that one, and it will be created, and we can see it's also inherited from the same class that we created before. The important point that would be also useful in Unreal, there are two steps. One is compiling, it means the functionality is ready to use, and the other one is saving one actor or one blueprint or one effect or anything else. Usually, I would prefer to go to the save and compile and choose unsuccessful only. It will help me to make sure that if the compilation is correct, then the actor is also saved. And the last point that I would like to mention here is we learn how to create a C++ class by either going into the tools and creating new C++ class or going to the C++ folders and here right-clicking or new C++ class. But the other way that we can do that is in going to Rider, right-clicking on the folder that we want to edit. Usually here is the public one. And then we can choose Unreal Engine classes. I will just choose here another class. And then I can define the actor or the class that it will be inherited from. You can also choose between all classes available. But here I can choose, for example, actor, and it will immediately create that class for me. Just it's important to know that it's not added into the project. And if you want to add it, as you can see here, you need to build a project again. By pressing build, it will try to build that project and adding that class into your projects. That's it. Now we have our own class and we are ready to go to implement some cool features. Looking forward to see you in the next episode and enjoy your time. See you there. Bye.